Simultaneous equations. So here we have a question similar to the ones we're doing last lesson. 2 clouds and 2 circles is 12, 1 cloud and 2 circles is 8. Now of course you can see that the difference between the top row and the bottom row is just that the top row has got 1 extra cloud. So that's the only difference. So actually if we take these two things and basically kind of subtract them to find the difference between them, well obviously if we subtract this you're just going to have 1 cloud because that's the difference between these two. And if I do 12 take away 8, that will be equal to 4. So it's telling me that obviously 1 cloud must be equal to 4, okay, because 12 minus 8 is 4. The only difference is that the top one has an extra cloud, so that must be the extra 4 in the total. Once I know that 1 cloud is 4, then it's easy to work out what the value of the missing circle is, because here on the bottom one, for example, it has to add up to 8. So each one of these must be 2, and you can see it works on the top that it all adds up to 12 as well. Okay, now we don't want to solve questions with circles and clouds, so we want to change it into algebra. So we're going to say, for instance, that this is x, the value of this is x, and the value of this is y. So that we can then write down the equations how we're going to normally see them, which is on the top row you have 2 x's, so 2 times the value of x plus 2 y's is equal to 12. And on the bottom we have x plus 2 y's has to be equal to 8. So the method we're going to use is to use this method that I've just shown you, which is called elimination. You just subtract. Now why do we do that? Well, one of the letters will then disappear, kind of thing. So let's do it. So 2x take away x, that gives you 1x. 2y take away 2y, that's 0 y's. 12 take away 12 take away 8 is 4. So this automatically tells me that x is equal to 4, which is what we found before. Now in terms of the algebra, once you know what one of the letters is worth, then we can use one of the equations and substitute it back. In other words, if you look at this equation here, we know that x plus 2 y's has to be equal to 8, and we now know that x is 4. So what we can do is take this equation and replace the x by 4 because we know it's now equal to 4. So 4 plus 2y equals 8. And then just solve this like we did with algebra. So take the 4 to the side and subtract it. So we now know that 2y equals 4. So y must be equal to 2. Okay. So we have the same solution before when we had this was 4 and this was 2. Yeah. So that's the method we're going to use. So let's do another example. So for instance, in this one, x, 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 and y. So obviously the equation in algebra is 3x plus y has to be equal to 14. And x plus y has to be equal to 6. So what we're going to do is find the differences. So we can do it on both sides if you like. So if I subtract these two, I'm going to end up with the difference between them being the two star shapes. I can't draw that, so I'm just calling it a star. And on the right hand side, 14 take away 6 is 8. So obviously these two shapes must be 8. So that tells me that one of those shapes must be equal to 4. And actually it's the same solution as last time, isn't it? 4 and y then must be 2. We can see that here because it adds up to 6. So in terms of the algebra we would just do the same thing. So subtract 2x, y take away y is nothing, and 14 take away 6 is 8. So that tells me that x equals 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And then just take one of the equations, so I'm going to use this one, and put the x is 4 there, so I'm going to have 4 plus y equals 6, and obviously that tells me that y is equal to 2. Okay, so let's just quickly have a look at these examples. So again, we're going to subtract, because when we do 2x minus x, that will give us x. Y minus y is nothing. 7 minus 5 is 2. So that automatically tells me that x equals 2. And how do I find y? Well, on the second equation, we know that x plus y has to be 5. So can you see if x is 2? If we know that x is 2, then y has to be 3 to make it 5. We can always check our answer to see if it works. Now, does it work in the top equation? 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3 makes 7. It does work. So we're always trying to find the values of x and y which fit both of the equations. Okay, and this is the method we're using. So again, we're going to have to subtract this one. So 4x minus 2x is 2x. Y take away y is nothing. 6 take away 4 is 2. So that tells me, doesn't it, that x is equal to 1. Now, of course, this time it's not so easy to see what the value of y is straight away. So remember, what you need to do is to basically substitute. So take one of the equations. I'm going to take the second one because it looks a bit easier. It doesn't matter which one you use. We know that 2x plus y has to be 4, but we know that x is 1 now. So 2 times 1 is 2. So 2 plus y has to be 4, and then obviously y must be 2. Right, this one. So again, we're going to subtract. The reason we're subtracting is because we want one letter to disappear, and then we'll be able to easily work out the other one. So 5x minus 3x, 2x. 2y minus 2y is nothing. 1 minus 3, that's minus 2. So what's the value of x? Well, it's minus 2 divided by 2, which is minus 1. Now we've got to work out the value of y. Again, slightly more complicated. Let's take the top equation this time. And if we know now that x is equal to minus 1, 5 times minus 1 is minus 5, plus the 2y has to be equal to 1. Okay, so how do we solve that? Well, we did this when we were doing the algebra topic. Take the minus 5 to the other side, it becomes a plus 5. So we end up with 2y is 1 plus 5. So 2y equals 6. So y equals 3. So the solution is x equals minus 1 and y equals 3. We can check it in both of the equations and you'll see it does actually work. Okay, if you check the second one, look, x is minus 1. 3 times minus 1 is minus 3. 2 times 3 for y is 6. Minus 3 plus 6 is actually 3. Okay, now again, this one we're subtracting. Now can we see something different this time? We're going to subtract because x minus x will now be nothing. Yeah, it's helping us when we subtract and one of the things disappears, because then it's easier to work out what the other one is. So x minus x is nothing. 2y minus y is just 1y. And 9 take away 4 is 5. So this time we know that y is equal to 5. And then what is the x equal to? Well, take one of the equations, doesn't matter which. I'm going to use the second one. So x plus y equals 4. And we now know that y is actually equal to 5. So x plus 5 is equal to 4. And we're going to take the plus 5 to the other side, and it will become a minus 4 minus 5, or take away 5 from both sides. And 4 minus 5 is minus 1. So that tells me the solution is x equals minus 1 and y equals 5. Okay, so this method is called elimination. So at the moment when you subtract, one of the letters disappears. Now, What about if we have something like this? 5x minus y equals 3, 3x minus y equals 1. Now, in this case, if we subtract, is one of the letters going to disappear? Yes, it is, actually. This time, if we still subtract, it's going to work. Why is it going to work? Because we have a minus y here, okay, and we have a minus y here. And if you subtract two things which are the same, it has to give 0. Any two numbers, when you subtract them, if both those numbers are the same, when you subtract it, you have to get 0. Now, another reason why it works, of course, is because if you do minus y, take away a minus y, what do you get? Well, because two minuses make a plus, you end up with minus y plus y, which is obviously 0. Okay, so the rule with these types of equations is if you've got something the same, like here, y and y, and they both have the same sign, then when you subtract, it's going to disappear. It's going to give you 0, which is what we want to help us solve it. So 5x minus 3x, that's 2x. Minus y minus minus y is nothing. And 3 minus 1 is 2. So obviously that tells us that x must be equal to 1. 2 divided by 2. Once we know that x equals 1, I'm going to have to use one of the equations. I'm going to use the second one this time. So we know 3x minus y equals 1. But we now know that x is 1. So 3 times 1. So 3 minus y has to be 1. Now how do we solve this, if you remember from algebra? Well, we can take the 3 to the other side if we want. But we're going to be left with a minus y, which personally I don't like to do that. So I like to take the minus y to the other side and bring the 1 to this side. So I'm going to leave the 3 there. When you bring the 1 to this side, it becomes a minus 1. Or take 1 from both sides. And I'm going to take the minus y to the side, will become a plus a positive y. Or if you prefer, add y to both sides. Yeah? So that tells me that y is equal to 2. And if you check it, you see it's going to work for both equations. So again, with this one, we have a minus 3y and a minus 3y. So two things the same. Yeah, so we're going to subtract. If the signs are the same and the number is the same, you're going to subtract. If the numbers are all different, we're going to do that later, but at the moment we're doing it like this, yeah? So 2x minus x, minus 3y minus minus 3y is 0. And 3 minus 0 is 3. So x is 3. Choose one of the equations. Let's choose this one, looks a bit easier. So we know that x is 3. Now I'm going to take the minus 3y to the other side because it will become plus 3y. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So you can see that y is going to be equal to 1. So the solution is x equals 3 and y equals 1.